movies from various genres and decades. Stay tuned for this episode. Well, hello again. It's us, the MovieNauts, and we got episode 20, random 70s cult films, different genres, and it was a I don't know about the rest of you, but it was kind of a tough call, and I changed my list at the last minute, like a few days ago. I submitted one list, but then I was like going, no, I like these ones better.
And by the way, this is part two. I think our very first episode was part one of this.
Oh yes, that's right. That's right. So this is part two. Okay, we'll have to put that in the bio and everything. All right. I'm gonna let Gary start tonight.
Okay. And you guys know me. I'm typically on brand with horror. This one's a little bit, I don't know if I necessarily call it a horror. It's more of a thriller. It's from 1971, Play Misty for Me with Clint Eastwood. And it's almost like a precursor for like Fatal Attraction. Because Clint Eastwood plays this DJ and this woman starts pretty much stalking him. I mean, they do have an affair, but then she just goes ballistic on him and starts wanting to own him and starts tormenting him and just going nuts. I really do think Fatal Attraction, they must have really liked this movie. It is a very tense movie, a lot of suspense. And it's interesting to see Clint Eastwood playing a more vulnerable character because you're not used to that from him, especially in 1971. It was not something that was really his forte. So yeah, Play Misty for Me. It's a really good movie.
Yeah, I remember seeing that one. That was good.
I have not seen it, but I would throw in that for anybody who doesn't know, 1970s is kind of peak period for Eastwood, in my opinion. I think that's that's
I
his
agree.
peak era, his best era, for sure.
All right, well, you're next.
So I'm up. So when you guys said 1970s, the first thing that came to my mind was Paul Naschy. I have to do Paul Naschy. The big Paul Naschy fan. He's most famous for his werewolf movies. I brought him up in a few episodes. I'm sure I did at least one Naschy movie in the first part one. Jacinto Molina is his full name. So I decided to go with Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman. I think I mentioned the movie before, but I haven't actually covered it as one of my 5 or 10 films that we do in these episodes. Many consider this his best one. It's certainly up there, probably top 5. If you don't like it, it's going to go downhill from there. Keep in mind, he filmed his movies on location, well, for everyone else, in Spain. He's from Spain. And the cool thing about his movie, things I like best about his movies are that, in Hollywood, they're going to build a castle. Today, they would do a CGI castle. He just walks up to an old castle that's ruined in Spain and starts filming. I mean, you just can't beat that. The special effects there are no special effects. He gets up to a castle right there in Spain and just starts filming. And there's actually 2 werewolf women. And he battles them both. This is second or third. I believe it's his third werewolf opus. He does 14 of them all together in his career. He did pass away a little over 10 years ago, I think now, so well in the 2000s. And in case you forgot last time, he writes his own movie. He actually started out as a writer, writes his own movies, acts in them, and later in his career, he even starts producing and directing as well. This is not one that he directed. I believe this is directed by Leon Klimovsky, who directed the majority of his movies, especially early in his career, including this one. But it's one of his best. He does have he gets the girl. That's always one of the big things in the Nashi movies. They call them, how James Bond has Bond girls. Paul Nashi, they have Nashi girls. I think it's Gabby Fuchs plays the female lead in this one. Um, and actually, my description of Paul Nashi movies is a combination of James Bond, Universal horror movies, and somewhere in there it kind of has a Godzilla feel to it as well, something like that, because maybe that's just the foreign film aspect to it. But anyway, I'm a big fan. I think it's one of the better ones. Most people who are Nashi fans, he's an acquired taste. Some people, but you know what? That's why he's cult, right? That's why they're cult movies. I have definitely acquired his flavor. But
sounds interesting.
If he has nothing else, he has an enthusiasm for the horror genre. You have to. That's one thing you cannot take away from him. He's very much very enthusiastic with his portrayal of werewolves and other movies. He plays vampires and just general killers and things like that. I love him. But anyway, I can't get enough Nashi movies. But anyway, so that's my first one, Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman, 1971. I start off with today.
All right. Well, I'm going to start. I'll follow you in the same year, 1971. It's a Hammer film called Hands of the Ripper, and it's about Jack the Ripper, but his daughter, 3-year-old daughter, witnesses one of his crimes, and then years later, when I guess she was about 18 or so after her father died, his spirit went into her, so she becomes the Ripper, and she's killing people all over the Whitechapel area, and it's a typical Hammer film. I mean, it has that feel to it, that I've noticed that anytime one of them comes on, you say, okay, yeah, that's got to be a Hammer film. And I just like this is one I actually own early on in my Blu-rays, and I just love watching it because it's just a different way of having Jack the Ripper's spirit inside a young girl. I think she's like 18 or 19 years old, and it's almost like an on-off switch, because she could be sweet and everything, and then something triggers her, and then she goes on a killing spree. And this is a pretty good one. If you like Hammer films, this is one of the lesser known ones, because it doesn't have Peter Cushing or Christopher Lee in it, and I don't think it really has any of the staples in Hammer films. Probably maybe some of them were busy at the time, and who knows, but that's my first one.
Well, that sounds like one I want to check out, actually. I was looking at the pictures of it, and it definitely looks like one I should check out. So my second movie, in the 1970s, you can't really do 70s, especially 70s horror, without touching on Dan Curtis, because at least for TV horror, Dan Curtis owned it. I mean, it was him. And so my second movie is the Norliss tapes, which is from 73. And I've argued this with a few people. I think it has a lot in common with Kolchak. You've got, he's not a reporter, but he is a writer, and he's working on a book. And the whole setup for the movie is he's gone missing, and his agent is there going over these cassette tapes that he had for notes of this new book he was working on a zombie cult, basically. And he's listening to all the tapes. And so we see, the flashbacks of as he's listening to the tape, we see we see what's going on, what's being heard on the tapes. And it's a total supernatural thriller, kind of thing. Just exactly what you'd expect from Dan Curtis. Um, and again, I think it's very much like Kolchak the Night Stalker. Um, but it has its differences too. But if you like Kolchak, you will love the Norliss tapes, even though it's a lot less well known.
I heard of that, and you said 73.
73, yeah.
So I think that came before Kolchak.
Yeah, I believe it did. Yeah.
So maybe that was inspiration.
Maybe. I mean, and maybe, what? I should have researched this. It's possible because Kolchak the Night Stalker was actually based on a book. And it's possible that he had read the book, wanted the rights to it, couldn't get the rights, so he came up with the Norliss tapes, and then he got the rights later. Again, that's just my speculation. I have not researched it. I should have. But just a theory.
I've been looking at that title for the longest time, and now I want to check it out. I keep on seeing it on different free sites.
Yeah.
And I've been wanting to check it out, but then it's like, should I? Well,
you really should. If you like Kolchak, check it out because it has a lot in common with Kolchak. It has a lot of the same feel. I mean, Dan Curtis sort of always has a certain feel to it,
Yeah.
And it has that feel.
Yeah, I remember seeing his Dracula.
Yeah, that was just on Svengoolie last weekend. Excellent.
Yeah, that was one.
Or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, I think. But yeah.
Yeah. All right, you're up, Bill.
Okay, I have a loud dog over here. Hopefully she's not being too loud. Both of those sound really good. And
is it a devil dog?
I think it is actually. I would not be surprised. Which is a good movie that we should cover one day. So anyway, now I lost my train of thought. Oh, the first time we did this, I did a Bruce-sploitation movie. After Bruce Lee passed away, a lot of wannabes. Sometimes they call them wannabes. Sometimes they call them Bruce-sploitation. But anyway, I thought I'd cover one of the Bruce Lee proper movies, and I actually have a Bruce Lee action figure to go with my. That's one of the Funko reaction figures, by the way. It comes with the nunchucks. There's another version where he has the yellow suit from Game of Death. But anyway, this action figure is actually from the movie I'm talking about today too, because you can see, if you look really closely, the slash marks on his chest and on his cheeks. That is from the movie Enter the Dragon. Love the Bruce Lee movies. He started the kung fu action genre. He basically created the whole genre. I've actually read articles, cinematic articles about how Bruce Lee not only started these genres, he practically started the entire Chinese filmmaking industry, or at least updated it to the 20th century anyway. And not only that, but his movies, the fight scenes are so intricately timed that they've been compared to Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers' dance sequences. I've read academic articles on this.
Wow.
So, and they are something to watch. And he is another one who wrote his own movies and starred in them. He started out in the United States. As many might know, he was Kato in The Green Hornet. He was supposed to be the lead in Kung Fu and wrote the script for the pilot. And then they gave it to, what was it, David Carradine.
David Carradine, yeah.
Yeah, he was a little bummed about that. That's what made him go back to China and make movies over there. But he learned a lot while he was here. And ironically, that's almost exactly the same life history as Jacinto Molina. Paul Naschy also came to the States, was practically an extra, really. He didn't even see as much success as Bruce Lee, but he went back to his home country and then made movies over there with what he learned. Now, Enter the Dragon is one of his most famous movies. It is one of the best. It's the one where they're bringing everybody onto an island for this big kung fu tournament. And then they find out that the guy leading the tournament is smuggling. So he goes and tries to stop the smuggling. It also started the careers of many other kung fu heroes, such as Jim Kelly's in it, Bolo Young. I know I'm forgetting one or two big names in the kung fu genre. If anybody remembers them, put them in the comments, and I'll probably say, "Oh yeah, you're right." But yeah, there was a number of them who started in that. It's not the one with Chuck Norris though. That's another one. But and by the way, the slashers come when he's fighting the lord of the island, and the guy is missing a hand, and he has these other attachments that he puts on his hand, kind of like James
Yeah.
Bond, really. And one of them has like 5 knives, and he's slashing at him during the fight scenes and everything. It's also got the room of mirrors that they fight in. It's really cool. Cinemagraphically, it is really a stupendous movie, particularly for its budget. Definitely worth checking out. And Bruce Lee, in some of his interviews, when he talks about these movies, he says the hardest thing is to logically come to a fight scene, you know. And you can tell he really struggles with that. That's what everybody wants to see, though, right? People paid their money to see those fight scenes, and he didn't just want to rush into them. He wanted to really, gradually get into it. Unlike a lot of the Bruce exploitation movies and a lot of the other kung fu movies, his do have a lot more character development, so they are definitely a couple notches higher than the one I talked about last time, which was Bruce the Invincible. You don't want to see that. Unless you just want a good laugh. Anyway, that's one for a good laugh. This one's a little bit more seriously a decent movie. So Enter the Dragon.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. I mean, of the martial arts, that's one of my favorites.
It really is. It really is a good movie on all levels.
That and one I think you probably know, Bill, Master of the Flying Guillotine.
I have seen that one.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That one you have to see to believe.
Yeah. Maybe you should cover that next time.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a little while since I've seen it. I should probably view it again before I talk about it. But I did see it on Epic's Drive-In used to show it sometimes, and I caught it once or twice back when I had cable and back when I had expensive cable.
Yeah, I know.
You have to have a really large cable package to start getting Epic's Drive-In.
Ron, before you get to your next one, I just did the research. So the two Kolchak movies came 72 and 73. So then Dan Curtis wasn't involved with the TV series, which did come after Norliss Tapes. So I think this was sort of his answer of maybe going on and doing another Kolchak kind of thing, since he wasn't involved in the series.
Gotcha. Oh, that's sweet. Cool.
It is. And by the way, this was 73, if I didn't mention my year.
I don't think you did.
Now you did. Now you did. All right. My second movie is from 1977, and it's Looking for Mr. Goodbar. This has Diane Keaton in it, and she plays a school teacher, and she still lives at home. And she's more of a teacher's aide to this slightly older teacher, and they get romantic, and he basically sexually awakens her, and he goes away for, I don't remember the reason why he went away, but he went away, and she is like addicted to it. So she goes out and basically sleeps around, and it's just amazing how she goes from basically a wallflower to someone that's fully experienced, and there's group things going on, swinger parties she goes to, and then she meets an untimely end because one of the people that she slept with was slightly unhinged, and it was based on a true story that happened in the early 70s, where an actual teacher did this was happened to. So it was kind of, I have a friend of mine she's a teacher, and I told her, I said, I don't know what you do on your spare time, but maybe watch this movie. This will be like a cautionary tale, because you never know who you're gonna sleep with. It could be a complete total psycho. It got good reviews, and it did well in the box office. So for that point, it doesn't really classify as a cult classic, but it's almost forgotten because I don't hear anything about it. It's almost like it happened in 1977, and then it got shelved away. It's been on home video, but no one seems to be talking about it, and it's really good. It's a good thriller. It's a slow burn at the beginning, but then it just kind of picks up, and it's a full drama. It's classified more as a drama, a dramatic thriller. So if you like those things, this is really good. It's I also get to see a young Diane Keaton, even was Roger Ebert gave it a 3 out of 4.
I've never seen that movie, but I can remember when it was first out, and you would hear a lot about it. There was a lot of controversy about it, and it made a lot of news at the time.
Yeah, because being it was about a two event. I mean, they didn't say what city it was in, but it looked suspiciously like New York. Just the way the set, all the buildings are, but it never showed any landmarks or anything like that. So you can't really tell for sure. But it was just like an unspecified city. But I think the true story happened in New York City. So I think they probably didn't want to put it there for, just to protect at that time, if any of the families were still around. But I've been wanting to talk about this one for a while when we were doing 70s stuff, or even thrillers or something like that. So that is my second movie.
That brings us back around to me. And I'm going to go with a movie. I came really late to the game on this one. I only saw it for the first time a couple of years ago. The Hills Have Eyes from 1977. And it's it's sort of a basic setup in that you got some people a family traveling in a camper, and it's an extended family, and they're out in the middle of nowhere, and they stop and talk with the old guy at the gas station. You know what? When the old guy at the gas station tells you something, listen to him. If you've ever seen any of these movies, you listen to the guy. And he tells them just to get going. And they wind up, getting stuck, I think, and breaking down. And they're stuck in the desert. And they become prey to some people that live in the desert who are pretty weird. And it's funny, you were talking, I think, Bill, you were talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre once, and I think this has a lot in common with that movie. And I remember I got a little confused when you were talking about, for some reason, I flashed on Hills Have Eyes, and I was like, it's one of the movies where an infant is actually in danger. And that isn't in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but it is in Hills Have Eyes. And you don't see that often in horror movies. You literally don't know if the infant's going to be okay or not, and I'm not going to tell you if the infant is okay or not. But the infant is very much in danger in this movie,
Right.
and it's which is unusual, and it's for the time period, it's pretty brutal, it's pretty gritty. Michael Berryman is in it, and Michael Berryman, just because of his look, supposedly he's just I think he's still with us. He's just a sweetheart of a guy, but
Oh yeah.
he looks just creepy because of whatever physical condition he has. And they play that pretty well too.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that one. The second one, it had like, I think it was first 20 or so minutes, just a flashback. But, well, maybe I won't give it away. Who does the, let's just say someone does the flashback and you're not, and it's the, no, I wouldn't even say someone, something does the flashback. and a lot of these reviewers online talk about that and kind of poke fun at it, like, oh yeah, okay, sure. But that one's okay. I think that one was rushed, but because I think at the time, what's his name? That was in '82. So yeah, he was going to be doing Freddy at that time, '83 or something like that. So, just watch the first one, and I'm going to say it here: don't watch the remakes. It's almost like they put the first one like on steroids, and the atmosphere is gone.
The atmosphere is so much of what makes the movie work too.
Yeah. Great one.
Okay. I actually haven't seen that one either. That sounds good though. All right, so back around to me, right? I'm up to my third one already, and I'm now going to Hammer. I haven't done much Hammer in this series actually, and I probably should rectify that. 1970. Actually, I have two movies from 1974. I'm going to do. I didn't look up to see which one came first in the months, but I'm just going to do this one first. Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell, or really, I usually like to say this one in the movie announcer voice: Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. So anyway, in this one, Dr. Frankenstein has been arrested for previous crimes and some of the other one from some of the previous movies. He is once again played by Peter Cushing, one of the greatest Dr. Frankensteins of all time, if not the greatest, at least the most evil, anyway, portrayal of Dr. Frankenstein of all time. And but they didn't send him to jail. Instead, they sent him to an asylum because they feel he is crazy. And in this asylum, some of the other inmates start missing limbs, arms and hands and legs, until eventually all of these limbs and other body parts form a new Frankenstein monster that goes on a rampage in this film. And it's the last Hammer Frankenstein film. It's the last in the series. And I did not watch it for a long, long time because of that, because I assumed probably went the same way as their Dracula series. The last movies must be the really stinkiest ones, the worst ones. But actually, I was pleasantly surprised. This thing's not bad. I mean, it's campy. It's about as campy as I just described it. But it's actually fun campy, not bad campy. It's a decent movie. And just a little trivia about it: the Frankenstein monster in this one goes on to play the on-screen image of Darth Vader. David Prowse is the Frankenstein monster in this one. There's only but so many 7-foot actors in Hollywood, so when you see a 7-foot guy, you got 2 or 3 guys you could name. You're probably going to guess it.
Right.
But he does a really good job in this one as well. Just hamming it up as a monster and going on a rampage and killing people. And it's if you like the Hammer Frankenstein series and you're like me, you were kind of hesitant to see that last film, I'd say go ahead and see it. I'd rush out because if you like the other ones, this one fits. It's actually better than some of the ones that come before it, in my opinion. There's a couple of them in there just before this, and then it starts to get kind of eh. But this one really brings it back. Brings it back pretty strong. It makes you want to, makes you wish they did another Frankenstein movie after this one because it wasn't bad.
Right.
So that's my third film, Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell.
Yeah, I back after Star Wars came out, I wrote to David Prowse to their fan club, and he sent me back. I got somewhere in my totes, I have a signed autograph from him. So from like 1978, awesome. And even wrote a letter to me. Just obviously I don't think it was him. He probably had his publicist type it out, but he basically just it was just saying, oh well, hey, and he was suggesting his other movies to watch, and that was one of them to check out if you liked him as an actor, even though he didn't do the voice. And the other one,
he doesn't do a lot of talking in this one either.
No. Then he was in another one too, another Hammer film.
He pops up every now and then. He's in a couple of them, I believe. Yes.
Yeah. Again, if you need a 7-foot tall guy, who are you
going to
call?
If it's a 7-foot tall guy, there's like 2 or 3 people you could name. You're probably going to guess them. It's one of them because there's not too many.
Right.
And if you want a good laugh, on YouTube, they actually originally Star Wars was supposed to use David Prowse's voice.
Oh yeah, I heard that.
And there are clips of it on YouTube. So if you want a good laugh, go on YouTube and watch. They actually screened that version, before the major release. They screened it once or twice and just thought it was terrible. And then they brought in James Earl Jones. To voice over all of the speaking parts.
Who was one of those guys who could read a phone book and make it sound interesting.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't go wrong with his voice.
All right. My next movie is from 1977, and it's called Rituals. And Rituals is kind of on the lines of Deliverance, but instead of taking place in the Deep South, it's taking place in Canada, and it has Hal Holbrook in it, and who were the others? And they're all doctors. So and it was just basically this person was just stalking them, and and I thought it was a little more on the slasher side than Deliverance. So Deliverance is more the drama. This is probably more the horror. And I first saw it a few years ago during the height of the pandemic, and I was like going, "Oh, this is a good movie." And at that time, it wasn't out on any home video, at least in print. But just one by one, the guys are getting killed off. And let's see who. I mean, Hal Holbrook is really the only big name in it, and it doesn't have the banjo playing, so you're safe on there. But it's funny that it's taking place up in Ontario, Canada. And I don't remember what the characters in Deliverance, what their professions were, but these are all doctors, and they just one by one just get picked off, and it's just it's very tense in times, really intense at times. You're just It's like you're kind of like going, oh my God, come on, hurry, run, get out of there. It's like don't dawdle about your backpack, just go. And so this is a really good one if you like Deliverance and you wanted it to be a little more horror. This is one to check out.
I believe they were in advertising in Deliverance.
Yeah, and then this one actually I think had another name because I had seen well, maybe it did. Oh yeah, the alternative title is The Creeper. It's like
Creeper?
okay,
Which that
the
sounds more like
Creeper.
a slasher.
Yeah, I think they didn't want it to sound like a slasher, but it really was.
It's that's interesting because Rondo Hatton played the Creeper in several movies in the 40s. That was
Yes.
the typical character he usually played was the Creeper.
Yeah,
Is there a squeal like a pig scene in there? I just got to ask.
no pig scenes.
I got to be crass enough to ask that.
Yeah, they don't even show who the killer, which is that's the cool. I kind of like that because you know if you sometimes when you see the killer, it kind of lets you down a little bit because especially after you've seen a couple of the kills and then all of a sudden you're thinking this monstrous guy and here's this 5'5" guy coming out. It's like, hey, I'm the killer.
It gives away the mystery. It gives away the mystery.
Yeah.
When you don't see the monster, it's whatever you're imagining, and everybody has their own imagination of what that awful monster looks like.
Yeah. So this is a good one to check out for Deliverance fans. So that's my number 3.
Okay, well, that brings us back around to me. And I like you, Bill, I have 2 movies from the same year, and I did not look to see which one came out first. The year is 78. Gargoyles is the first one, and it's a made for TV. And when we were first getting started, I Googled because I was thinking, was it a Dan Curtis? And it's not a Dan Curtis, which is kind of surprising. But I remember when Gargoyles would come on TV, I absolutely had to watch it every time it was on because it's just such a cool movie. The premise is that there's this race of beings that are like demonic creatures, and they're the gargoyles that people have put on buildings all this time. Were modeled after them, and they basically have a period where they have to wait for their eggs to hatch, and I forget how many years it is, but it's quite a few years, and they come back and they're ready to try to conquer the human race. And each time the human race has killed them, well, it's time for them to come back in this movie. And they start attacking this area in the Southwest where these Native Americans were. And there's a guy who's a professor, and he's also an author, and he was doing a book on some unexplained stuff, and this guy was showing him a skeleton of one of the gargoyles, and they get attacked, and he and his daughter are trying both to get this skeleton out of there, but also later survive because of all these gargoyles. And it's 1970s made for TV. The special effects aren't the best. The costumes actually look great, but they do this weird sort of slow motion effect when they're moving, which I think kind of makes them seem more alien, which is kind of cool, but it also seems a little hokey. Also, they've got wings, but you only ever see them fly once, which I'm sure was a budgetary thing. It would have been pretty handy for them to fly more, but I don't think they have the budget for it. But it's actually a really, really interesting movie. It's a lot of fun.
I've heard of that one quite a few times. I probably should check that. I probably should have checked it out by now, actually. That slow motion effect.
What year was that again?
78.
Okay.
And I remember, like I say, it was made for TV. I remember watching it on TV when it premiered.
Sounds very familiar.
Yeah, I might have seen it way back in the day, but maybe just if I watch it, I might remember some of it because that
Yeah.
was around the time I started watching things like that. That slow motion effect was also used a lot in my first movie, Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman. So that must have been a '70s thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
was.
mean, my impression is pretty much the same though. It's kind of cool at first, but then they use it too much, and it kind of gets a little hokey after after a little bit. The vampire
Yeah.
women are always moving in slow motion throughout the whole movie, uh, which I probably should have mentioned.
With you know what, with the gargoyles, I wonder if part of it is maybe the costumes. Maybe they couldn't move so well in the costumes, or perhaps they sort of wiggled around a little more, like the wings wiggled more than they should have, or something. So they slowed it down to make it less obvious. I don't know. That's just again just a guess, but
Maybe the actors couldn't really walk that well, or were tripping.
yeah,
It just makes them look more natural.
yeah,
Could be, which actually isn't a bad way to hide those kind of things.
yeah.
But anyway, I have heard of that. That sounds good. All right, so I'm back up. So my fourth movie is also 1974, and it's another action film, Caged Heat. We're it's more of an exploitative movie. I don't have. I left my phone in another room, so I couldn't look it up. I believe it's a Roger Corman, but I'm not 100% sure. If it's not a Roger Corman, it's definitely his style.
I'll look.
um, Thank you. I left it in another room. I go over again. Anyway, it's one of those women in cages movies where they're in a women's prison movie, and there is an evil women's prison guard, and the evil women's prison guard is one of my all-time favorite actresses, Barbara Steele, who plays it very evil. She's actually confined to a wheelchair for this part. Uh, I don't know, just maybe to get some sympathy. I don't know, but anyway, it works. It works pretty well in it. And the big scenes in the movie are when they are trying to break out of the women's prison. They're treated, of course, very. If you've seen one of these movies, you've seen them all. If you've seen women's prison movies once, you've probably seen pretty much all of them. They're treated very terribly in the prison. They break out and try to escape, but there's a lot of firearms play and action and things like that. So, is it a Corman?
Okay, so it is. It was directed and produced by, or directed by Jonathan Demme. Corman wasn't actually involved, but it was in New World Pictures, which Corman was the head of New World.
Okay,
So,
so
so there's a connection there.
he had some involvement in it.
Yeah,
It
the
was his
company he was
studio that he
running
was.
did it. So
Yeah, that's that studio that he was running at the time. Okay,
yeah,
thank you for looking that up.
sure.
It definitely looks like a Corman. If you like Corman movies, you'd like it anyway. Um, but yeah, but that's most of it. There's a lot of gunplay towards the end. They're trying to get out and escape, and they come after him with machine guns going back and forth. So again, if you've seen one women's prison movie, you've seen them all. This is probably a bit more softcore than most of them, actually. Although there is nudity, if that's a plus or a minus, is up to the audience. But
So of all the women's prison movies, this is one, huh?
that's right. I'm not going to say it's the best one. I don't think it's the worst one. I will say that much. I won't say it's the best, but I don't think it's the worst. Um,
No, there
it's
was a lot
not
of.
exactly a softcore porn movie like most of them are, but there is nudity. But the women kind of band together. They really get a sisterhood in this movie. They build up to it quite a bit. So it does have a bit of a plot, unlike some of them.
Right.
Not saying the plot's good, but it's got one. So Caged Heat, 1974.
All right. My fourth one comes from 1978, and it's The Manitou. It's basically it's a supernatural body horror type film, and a woman notices that she has a growth on her shoulder, and it's slowly growing to the point where there seems to be a body in there, and it seems to be this Manitou, which is a Native American medicine man. And this particular one supposedly was the most powerful one 400 years ago. and he reincarnates himself. And it has Tony Curtis in it. He plays kind of like he's like a medium. He kind of fakes everything, including he has a big mustache, a really bad mustache. And Susan Strasberg, who's the female that has the growth. And then the guy that plays another Native American medicine man, Michael M. Sarah. And when you see him, you recognize him, because he's been in a lot of those movies in the 70s and 80s. But slowly,
Michael and Sarah, right?
And Sarah, yeah.
Yeah, he was married to Barbara Eden.
Really?
At one time. Also played a Klingon on Star Trek.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that you say that, I can now picture it. But so basically, the Manitou emerges from the lady's back. A lot of the special effects are very hokey. It was based on a book, and basically it's good versus evil. And I won't tell you how it ends, but it is. I mean, it's not the greatest movie I've ever seen, but it is kind of a fun movie, you know, and just using Native American folklore as the basis of this, which I found that appealing. Yeah, I think it didn't do great in the box office, and I think it had a lot of well, it says it's got a 40% on Rotten Tomatoes, and and then it has a little small appearance by Burgess Meredith. And no, he doesn't play the manager. He plays a doctor colleague of one of the doctors there, and this is really good. I mean, I saw it again last night, you know, because it was many years since I've seen it. And again, this is another movie you don't hear too much about. You know, of the amount of time that I'm on YouTube and looking at different other people movie reviews and movie shows, I haven't seen anybody talk about it. So I want to say to anybody, if you like supernatural body horror, you know, this is a good one. I mean, it's not gory because I think it was rated PG, but it just has it's more of the atmosphere. And that is my fourth movie.
So I'm going to 6 degrees of separation you on this one. You said Burgess Meredith's in that one. I'm wearing the T-shirt of a movie called Invasion of the Saucer Men, and this movie stars Frank Gorshin, who was the Riddler on TV's Batman 1966. Of course, Burgess Meredith, for anyone who might not know, was the Penguin. So one of these days, I'm going to do 5 movies that have actors from 1966 Batman. That's what I got to do that.
One of these days I should do one with 5 actors from Star Trek.
There you go.
Touche.
And then you know what? That episode, then Ron can do 5 actors from Doctor Who.
There you go.
I'll have to tackle that one.
That sounds like a pretty good episode, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that brings us back around to me. And this one, perhaps not a cult movie, because it did do really well at the box office, but it wasn't intended to do well at the box office. Nobody expected it to. And, you know, it was huge for a while, and then it sort of died off. And I've heard a lot of negatives about it over the years now. And I had to go back to John Carpenter. Everybody knows John Carpenter is my favorite director. Haven't done any John Carpenter in a while. Well, Michael Myers, the original Halloween, 1978, started the
There you go.
franchise. You know, it's just the movie, what I've heard about it is it's slow. It doesn't have enough kills and all this. And you know what? Here's the thing I like about that movie. I think one of my favorite things is if you really pay attention to the background. A lot of times you can see Michael just sort of lurking in the background. Just little detail, you'll see him somewhere. You've got to sort of watch for him sometimes. And he doesn't even do anything in the scene except he's there and he's
Mhm.
watching. And I find that really, really creepy. And you know what? It was not the first slasher film, not by a long shot, but it was the one that triggered the entire slasher film explosion in the 70s because it was super low budget and it did so well at the box office. Everybody's like, hey, we can make some money at the slasher movies too. Um, and you've got Donald Pleasance doing the Dr. Loomis, which apparently I heard that the only reason he took the movie, he didn't like horror movies. He didn't know who John Carpenter was. Um, but his daughter had said that John Carpenter did good music in his movies. 'Cause I think she had seen like Assault on Precinct 13 or whatever before that, and was like, "Yeah, you gotta do this." And so he decided to do it, plus the money. But um, yeah, it's I don't know. People, like I said, a lot of people prefer the newer. Like there are a lot of people who love the Rob Zombie version. I do not. I think the Rob Zombie version goes into the details of why Michael is who he is, which I think ruins the entire mystique of it. The
Yes.
mystique is that he is some evil, and we don't know why he's the way he is. He just is, and he's not quite
Yeah.
human. That's what makes it so creepy to me. Um, but yeah, the original Halloween, that is my final movie for this time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I'm one, I wouldn't say I don't like a lot of gore, but I don't like it when gore takes the place of plot. And so a little less gore to me is usually a little better. And that's why when I watched that one, I really liked that one as well.
Yeah.
The original Halloween is an excellent movie. And I've seen at least a few of the others in the series. I didn't get too far into that series, but one of these days I'll probably see more. But that one is definitely worth seeing, even for people who might be more squeamish. Like I say, for me, it's not squeamish. It's just I don't know, like plot better, or even if it's a goofy plot, just plot. But anyway, and I totally agree with the background stuff too. That's like the best stuff in that movie. They did a lot with that background stuff. It's really great. Definitely one of the best. Anyway, well, I'm going totally opposite of that. for, for my last movie, I went with a comedy. I almost had two comedies on this one. Maybe when we end, I'll tell you guys what it was when we put the cameras off. But what the other one was that I'm going to definitely have to do next time, or sometime. Anyway, I've never done a Mel Brooks movie in here, and I really need to fix that. So I'm fixing that today. But it's hard to say that some of the 70s movies were cult because, Blazing Saddles, not really, it's a great movie, but it's hard to call it cult. Same thing with Young Frankenstein. So that was one you don't really hear much about. A silent movie has a really good cast. Dom DeLuise and Burt Reynolds. And one of the interesting things about this movie was it was somewhat autobiographical for Brooks. He was in a comedy team with Carl Reiner for a long time, and I believe I probably should have done my homework before this, but I think his first wife dies or something, or somebody important in his life died, and he turned to drinking and didn't do anything for a long time until he did the producers, and then after that was Blazing Saddles, and then Young Frankenstein, and I believe this is the next movie after that, if I remember correct. I'm pretty sure it is. Um, and this was kind of autobiographical. He's supposed to be this down and out movie producer and director, and he's trying to make a comeback, and he's calling all these famous actors. So a lot of these famous actors only have bit parts in it, but Dom DeLuise is in the most. And it really is a silent movie. There's one speaking line, and it's the funniest part of the whole movie. I don't know. Should I give away the spoiler?
I think you can.
I can give away
Yeah,
the
why not?
spoiler. I don't know. Ron says no. Gary says yes. The
I thought
only
you said yes, didn't you, Ron?
At
said
first I
yes.
said no, but then I said yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the only speaking line is by Marcel Marceau, who is a famous mime. And he asks, well, I won't say what he says, but it's the only speaking line is a mime, which is
Yeah,
just totally hilarious.
that's perfect. That's perfect. You know, mind speaking.
I know the one thing that's never supposed to speak.
One of
Um,
my favorite parts, I saw that movie. I saw this movie in the theater. One of my favorite bits in it is there's one point where the camera is clearly focused on Dom DeLuise, and he says something, and you can very clearly read his lips. And what he says is not what they caption it. They caption it as "you dirty boy," but that is very much not what he says.
and that's such Mel Brooks humor. You just gotta
Yeah.
love Mel Brooks humor. I probably did see this in the theater, but I might be too young to remember it. I do. I will say this much: my parents were huge Mel Brooks fans. I was taken. The first movie I remember seeing in a theater was Blazing Saddles. My my parents brought me twice and took me to see it in the drive-in, where it was uncut. Maybe that's why I grew up the way I am. I don't know. But I grew up as a huge Mel Brooks fan, and this is one of his unsung, really good movie that you don't hear enough about.
I honestly I never see it, so I'll have to go
Yeah.
search for it. I know I saw on that there's a box set, and I don't remember what movies are in there. But
It might be one of them in there.
yeah,
One of his lesser known ones that are it's still worth watching. If you're a Brooks fan, you like Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, it's probably next step after that. Well,
oh
Say
yeah,
it's
maybe
probably
his
the
my
other
next
one,
second favorite after Young Frankenstein.
the one that I like from them, and my brother and I used to watch it a lot on HBO. History of the World Part One.
Actually, that's
and
probably
and
my
my
favorite, honestly.
my brother and I were like going, "Oh, when's going to be part two?" I think that was the whole bit. It
Yeah.
wasn't supposed to be, but then
I
they
heard
did
I've
something.
heard a,
They
I
did
heard a,
they did do something.
A couple of years ago, yes, they did a series on Hulu. Might be on a
Yeah,
yeah,
few other streaming things now too, but it originated on Hulu. History of the World Part Two. It was
yep.
Will Brooks was involved with it, but it was mostly Wanda Sykes wrote a lot of it, actually. Who's actually local to where I am, Hampton
What?
Roads, Virginia. Black stand-up comedian.
oh yeah.
But she wrote, I don't know if she wrote all of it, but she wrote a lot of it. I know that anyway. Um, Great stuff. Love Mel Brooks. I would see him in anything. He just makes he could make reading a phone book funny. It's just
You know,
right. So outlandish. Uh, so that's my last one. I thought I'd finish off with a comedy silent movie.
all right. Well, my last one is from 1975, and I just was looking it up. It is directed by Dan Curtis, and it's a trilogy of terror, and it's three stories, all starring Karen Black. I like all of them, but the one I love is the last one. So the first one is she's a professor, and this student is hitting on her and trying to get her to go out. And then one time he drugs her and takes pretty for a made-for-TV movie suggested photos, and and then it turns out that she had the spell on him. He thought he had the upper hand. She had the upper hand, and that she's been doing that for years. Because she pulls out a scrapbook, and you see all these different students missing or having an untimely end, and so there was that one, that was pretty good. That kind of had I want to say kind of like they all have like a Twilight Zone feel. Then the second one, Karen Black is supposedly playing these two characters. Supposedly they're twins. One hates the other and gets a voodoo doll and and basically kills her that way. And it turns out that there was no twin. It was her. She had a split personality. And then the final one had that, what is that Zuni doll?
Zuni fetish doll, yeah.
Yeah, there's little tiny.
That's the one everyone remembers.
That little scary thing, and the noises it makes was like some of it was creepy, some of it was a little odd, but it's just I just like how at the end how it really basically it possessed
her. That final scene, was her idea too. That was Karen Black's idea.
Oh, cool.
With the teeth and everything, that was her idea, I guess.
Yeah, that one to me, I know 1975 compared, 50 years ago. Nowadays, that's really not scary, but if you put yourself in the mindset of 1975, that last one was pretty scary. Having that little doll chasing you.
Yeah, I was going to say,
with a knife, no doubt.
Yeah. I think I read that doll, the prop for that doll, was the highest price selling prop from a movie ever when it was auctioned a few years ago.
Oh wow! Now I know they made a part 2. Never seen it. I've kind of heard mixed reactions about it. I don't think Dan Curtis was involved. Oh, I should say that all three of the things were written by
Richard Matheson, right?
Richard Matheson, yeah.
I think Dan Curtis. I think Dan Curtis was involved in the sequel, as I recall, but it had a different actress in the 3 roles. Supposedly, I've never seen it either, but supposedly the third one of that brings back the Zuni doll too.
Yeah, I'm just looking at right here. It was direct. He was a part of it, and I mean, maybe it's worth checking out. Just to say that you've seen it. I mean, I think I haven't came across a movie that is so bad that I would never recommend to someone. I would say you have to be a certain type of person. I mean, like us, cult films, you gotta, if it's a cult film, we're basically watch it eventually.
Yeah, a Trilogy of Terror was originally on my list for this time, and then I dropped it off the list and put Gargoyles in instead. But yeah.
Yeah, it would be so cool if they did a Dan Curtis box set.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should. He has enough.
I have a hunch there's a lot of different licensing problems with that.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of different companies, and probably the licensing would be a real headache.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of them are available on Tubi. I know that. I don't think it'd be all of them, but a number of them are, or used to be. And I know Trilogy of Terror used to be. I don't know if it still is.
Well, I saw it. It's on YouTube.
Is it?
Yeah, and a pretty decent copy too. Lately they've been putting up some pretty good movies up there. So that was my final movie. And now we have 5 different movies, so you got 15 movies for people to go check out. And like Gary said in past episodes, if you have 5 that you want us to check put it down in the comments, because really would love to see if there's movies that we haven't seen. And were we going to be mentioning something tonight?
Let's turn it to Bill. It was Bill's idea. So explain away, Bill.
Speaking of Rondo Hatton, the Rondo Awards voting has begun. As of this recording, they began like 2-3 days ago, something like that. You just simply fill out an email. You go to the Rondo Hatton Awards, Google Rondo Hatton Awards, it'll come up. All the nominees will be in there. You can do a write-in for anything that's not in there. And if you wanted to nominate this show, we would qualify as the podcast / media, other media type show. If you are a member of this show, you like us, you think we deserve it, we would love to have your vote. We would love to get on that list and maybe even win a Rondo.
The name of the show is the MovieNauts.
That's right. Yes.
MovieNaut.
The MovieNauts. And voting ends, I believe, the end of April. So you do have some time, but don't waste too much time, or it slips right by you. And you don't have to vote in every category. You can just vote on the categories that you know and like.
I've got a couple I want to plug, and I think you've got a paper or something you want, or an article you wanted to plug, right, Bill, for that?
I do. There's also a short nonfiction article. If you go to Ravenous Monster, I have an article there on Fay Ray, the original Scream Queen that I wrote. I actually do reference Jamie Lee Curtis and Halloween in that, coincidentally. Now that I think about it, in that article, that could also be an eligible nomination.
What is the title of it, so they can get it right?
Fay Ray, the original Scream Queen.
Nice.
And I believe Scary Gary might be eligible for.
Yes, I've actually got 3 things I'd like to ask people if they would be so inclined to vote for. One of them, you can vote for Scary Gary of Spooky Movie Time with Scary Gary for horror host. Hey, you know what? Let's go for it. Svengoolie, I'm a Svengoolie fanatic, and he will probably win. He's won every year for a while now.
He's won too many years in a row. It's time to take somebody else. No offense.
Go with Scary Gary.
Come on.
Hey, give me some votes. And then I would also like She Knows, which is a short film. It's on YouTube by Stephen Anthony Morris. And you can vote for that for best short film. I happen to be in She Knows in a very small role, but I'm in it. I do get lines. So, and then a good friend, Will Collazo's movie, Amityville Turkey Day, which I've talked about on this show. You could vote for that for best independent streaming film. And it is, I'm not in that one, although I did just do a little cameo in a more recent movie of his. So, why don't we get those votes going if you guys want to? We would really appreciate it.
Yeah, that would be really nice.
I don't know how it works. I don't know if you get enough votes if they add you to that list, but it would just be cool to get in that list even.
Oh, yeah.
I think so, but I don't know how many votes it takes.
But, I don't know. But if you guys start throwing some votes in, maybe we'll actually get on the list, which would be cool.
That would be awesome. Even to be nominated is always an honor.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in something like that. That is the horror award right there.
People know about the Rondos. They are famous. And it is just number of votes too. So you know,
and yes, we did plan this out ahead of time, but which is why I had this printed out already. But
loosely,
yes,
right. So all you subscribers, and frequent watchers, please, go there and vote for us.
And when I put this up on YouTube, I'll actually put the information in the details section of the video too. So if you're watching this and you didn't catch everything while we were talking, just look in the details. You'll see everything you need there.
Yes. All right. Well, this wraps up episode 20. And like always, I appreciate you two doing this. I always have a blast. I always learn. I think I learn a little bit more because I love movies, and I haven't seen as many. I would say as you two combined. But so I like to learn about them and find new ones for me to watch. And I always check out your guys' titles and see if it's something up my alley. So thank you guys again.
Yeah, always glad to be here. It's always fun. And
It
thanks to everybody who watches and who comments.
Oh, yes.
We love the comments.
Yes. So until next month, we'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay.
Thank you very much for watching this episode. And stay tuned for the next one.